Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones, and today I am joined by Rachel, and she is the founder of Rebound Athletic, a movement coaching platform dedicated to helping people with long COVID and other chronic illnesses safely rebuild strength and fitness. She is a former Division I tennis player and a current national paddle tennis athlete and a certified personal trainer. Her journey took a life-changing turn after developing long COVID, which left her largely bedbound for about over a year. Frustrated by the unsafe recovery advice like graded exercise therapy, Rachel drew on both rehabilitation science and mind-body healing techniques that were instrumental in her own recovery. The result is a unique system designed to respect the realities of chronic illness while empowering people to reconnect with safe movement and reclaim their athletic identity. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you. What an intro.
I guess I'm like, oh, yay, you're wonderful. I think you're wonderful anyway. But so why don't you tell us who you are and how did you get to here?
Sure, I can expand on that great intro. So how I got to here, how I got to Rebound was exactly what you mentioned there in terms of my experience with long COVID, which started in July 2021 after an initial infection. Before that, I was training for the London Marathon. I was what I thought was fit and healthy. I was very naive about COVID, I think, and I kind of probably expected to get it, because everyone did at some point, but I didn't expect to have such consequences from it. I just thought I'd, be ill for a couple of weeks like most people and then just get better. And unfortunately, that just didn't happen for me. It got worse, not better. And I had a second infection a few months later, which is what then sent me bedbound completely, rather than kind of more of a boom and bust kind of place as I was before. And I think the thing that I struggled most with in that initial phase was this just loss of self and loss of my athletic identity, because I was someone that's always trained, that's always played sport. It was just part of my daily life and my core being. And that was really hard. I really missed it. I was scared I wouldn't be able to get back to it. Like, that kind of mindset I used to have, or if I missed a training session, I'd be like really disappointed. It's like, well, I've missed every day for months now. Like eventually I think when you're ill for so long, it becomes less about missing that part of yourself, but then actually focusing on just trying to get better and have any quality of life back. But certainly for quite some time at the start, I was grieving that old life and grieving my old self and lost a sense of identity that I got from moving my body. So yeah, like I could talk in depth about the whole sort of illness and healing journey more than we have time for here, but I guess the few things to call out from in that time, with a condition that was not much known about, and often a case of invisible illnesses, obviously completely foreign to me at the time. I didn't really know what was going on in my body. I would, if I had a better few hours or a better day, I would push the boundaries, not understanding what's going on. I'm going to go back and do the thing that I love to do, which is be my body. That's the first thing I'm going to do. But that always came with consequences, possibly crashes for sort of days or weeks on end. And so I made all of the common mistakes. I don't like the word mistakes anymore, because it wasn't mistakes. I didn't know, but even if you thought you only did a little amount of movement, you think it's safe, but it wasn't. It's just the unpredictable nature of these kind of, I guess, energy depleting conditions, and patients with post-surgical malaise presenting. So yeah, in that time I experienced, mentioned at the start, some traditional rehab approaches have been prescribed for chronic fatigue syndrome, ME, and because there was parallels with long COVID, that was also being prescribed for long COVID. And I thought, well, look, there's some people here trying to help. There wasn't any help before that. That was the first sort of offer of help I had, and it was a sort of healthcare company here. They're fit to provide it, but they have some other like support services that are offering this program of like recovery program of the contained movement and emotional support and pacing advice. And I thought, great, I jumped on it. but I was actually bedbound at the time. And so I just didn't understand. I just thought they must know what they're doing. I'm going to trust them. And I attended this program, but it just wasn't appropriate. Not that wasn't their fault. They thought that it was all their best intentions. And it was my experiences of that, the illness, and then also like these sort of other approaches that weren't appropriate for fatigue-based conditions, unpredictable conditions, and that led me to develop my own movement frameworks essentially for when I was able to do them in my own recovery. And then over time, as I got better, I then decided to make them available wider to our community. And that's essentially how Rebound Athletic was born.
That's awesome. So kind of going back a little bit, how afraid, because I think I wonder with the long COVID stuff, because we always have, I think as humans, we have residual issues with illnesses, right? Whether you
Mhm.
have bronchitis and then you have like a lingering cough or there's something like that. But I don't know if bronchitis has the same emotional charge that COVID has.
Mm.
And so I guess my question is, how afraid of COVID were you?
Initially, like when during the pandemic, I mean, I wasn't initially in terms of the actual virus. Like I said, I thought I would be fine if I got it because I was young-ish, healthy. So absolutely not afraid of the virus itself. Was I afraid of it more? Of course, after getting it and being unwell from it, yes. I was worried about reinfection and what that would mean. And the first time I got reinfected, it caused my symptoms to worsen. But I would say that in hindsight, I don't think it was the virus itself. I think it was my emotional response to it. Because of what I then fast forward 9-10 months later, when I discovered the mind body space and started to understand the connection between those kind of emotions and thoughts and feelings on your physiology, I was like, okay, yeah. Because I became extremely anxious after that second infection. And it dawned on me that I felt like I wasn't going to get better.
Mm.
Potentially, one of the biggest reasons I was extremely anxious at that time was because my wife was 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant, not 7 months. And I was like, I'm not going to be better for birth of my child. I'm not going to be able to look after them. And I had so much guilt and shame and emotions related to that absolutely compounded my symptoms, I think.
I think that's a huge part of it is that either there is the fear leading into it and also the tons of information. I mean, probably from 2020 to 2022, we were
Mhm.
flooded with more medical information than any human should ever take in their lives. So I think a lot of people who suffer from long COVID were terrified to get it in the first place. And then, of course, they get it and then they're hearing all these things, they exacerbate it. And then I think there's people like you who were like, I think I'll be okay because look at me, I'm healthy, I'm ready to go. And then you get it. And then there's this thing, right? There's this impending, I'm no longer who I am. And now the essence of me has to change. And then, of course, you add in the stressor of a pregnancy with parenthood, which is that your first child?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so then there's all that goes along with it as well of not knowing
Yeah.
quite what to do and stuff like that. So how before we really dig deep, like, well, I don't know, we're deep now. So you're
We
you're
can go
in this
deeper.
mind you're in this mind body space now and you're realizing. And were there some techniques that you used that like was there one thing that you were like, "Oh, okay, I can do this and then I'll find that my anxiety goes from a 10 to a 5 or a 10 to a 6 or something."
Yeah, there were certainly techniques that helped in terms of my fear around my symptoms in the moment. I talked about this before. I really got a lot of value out of the Curable app. I have no affiliation to them, but it just appealed to me, the concept of it and having it in my pocket, having lots of bite-sized educational stuff around it first, and then these kind of like, like yeah, like you could dip into like a somatic tracking or a certain meditation or whatever it was that you needed in that moment. It just kind of worked for me. But so somatic tracking was one of the things that they taught inside the app, and I would often go straight. That'd be my go-to if I could feel my symptoms coming on. I really suffered as well as I know everyone talks about the fatigue, but that's just an umbrella term of other symptoms. And one of my major ones was like constant cluster headaches, and I even still have some remnants of that. Like I have sort of weird sensations to them in the left side of my face where they'd always start here, and I knew it was going to come on. And it was probably like my most persistent symptom, which is why it's still taken, after 4 years, I still have to work on it. I
Mhm.
still dive into these. It's not an overnight fix, right? I have my life back, but I still have to manage certain things. But it would be the one thing that would just sort of dampen it down, dampen the fear response by just, they teach somatic tracking is about teaching you to observe what's going on in a non-judgmental way, right? Labeling it, what you're feeling, what the sensation is. And by doing that, it starts to teach your brain that it's not dangerous, that you're okay, rather than going, oh no, not again. What is this? I can't do this anymore, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, okay, this is interesting. It's warm. All right, it's moving around a little bit now. Now it's died down a little bit. Okay, it's come back. It's a bit fuzzy. It's a bit tingly. Like it's that kind of thing, and it just takes that fear response down. And eventually, over time, when you stick with it, it would dampen the actual intensity of the sensation. And that's what it did for me. So yeah, that was one of
That's
my
great.
go-tos. But over time, like I delved into different techniques, different practitioners, and approaches, because sometimes you need to keep it fresh. You've been doing following a certain way for a while. So I think I did curable for a few months, and then I really got a lot of benefit out of Pain Free Use channel. Just the
Mhm.
way Dan puts his stuff across just really resonated with me. And then various meditations and things I'd come across over time, like sometimes they would just hit a nerve. I
And
think
I
that's important.
Yeah, and it is important because you're correct. Things do get a little stale, and then there's also
Mm,
there's that line too of if I get too much into it, then it becomes an obligation. And Dan talks
yeah.
about that a lot, and we're talking about Dan Buglio and the fact that he's like go live because he's a hardcore Sarno person, and he's like go live your life. Right. Don't sit there and get bogged down in your symptoms and really
Hmm.
are into the fear, right? It's like, yes, they're there, acknowledge them, and then take it with you,
Yeah.
right? Anxiety is going for a ride today. Let's go, or whatever. And then eventually anxiety gets tired and doesn't want to go for the ride. And so then you get to go to a ride by yourself and you get to be you. So you've had an incredible health journey. How has that changed the way you approach your clients with fitness? And especially when you're dealing with somebody with, I don't know, I feel like fatigue is not enough of a
It's
term
not.
because it feels like it's so much deeper than fatigue.
It is. And yeah, I've learned to actually hate the word fatigue, especially when I was ill, because as anyone will know that's listening that has been through something like this, let's just call it fatigue for now, but a fatigue presenting condition, like, well, no, it's not tiredness. You can't just sleep it off. It's so much more physical. It's no understatement to say it feels like you're being poisoned by every cell in your body is just being destroyed. And like you say, it's like an umbrella for a bunch of other stuff. I won't list out all the symptoms I had, but it's not just one thing in isolation, unfortunately. I guess to answer your question, I think if I think about who I was before, before this happened, the hardworking athlete, ex-athlete, the sort of, the go harder, faster. I would be happy and proud of myself if I managed to get 2 or 3 different workouts in a day, whether that be strength training and Pilates and running home or whatever, which is just, and I could do it then, and I was fine, and I'd recover and go again. And I would push through my menstrual cycle because I still wanted to train.
Mhm.
That was my mindset. And obviously now I would never do that now. I never train multiple times a day now. I would always make sure to listen to my body and tune in and rest, despite if I want to train. So I think that's one thing. But really, I think the biggest thing in terms of answer your question about how I work with clients, not just on the practical level I'll get to in a minute, but on a deeper emotional level, I think it's that empathy. I have this deep understanding not of what someone of my clients have gone through. We share it. I know what the symptoms feel like. I know what the emotional roller coaster of that journey is like. So when they're talking to me, they don't have to explain it. They don't have to feel like they really need to over explain them stuff for me to get it or to believe them or whatever it might be. So I think that from a relationship perspective, it's very we form very trusting relationships quite quickly, and yeah, it's probably one of the parts of my job that I love the most is those relationships that I build and the people I get some of those amazing people, inspiring people that I really get to meet and quite quickly I think because of that connection that we have. So I think that's and And it's no disrespect to other practitioners that maybe work in this space or have done and try and support people with chronic illnesses. And I'm sure if they do, that's because they've researched the conditions. They've known a lot more about than general, Joe blogs. But there is something different, I think, about having lived it and actually really understanding what it feels like. Certainly from a client coach relationship, I found that very beneficial.
Yeah. And you bring
But
up two
yeah.
very interesting points. Is one is we need empathy. I need
Mm.
you, and not like, I don't even know what the word is, not you feeling sorry for me, not your pity,
Yeah.
but we need
Yeah.
empathy. And then there's something huge about being believed. And because with invisible illnesses, or a lot of mind body stuff is stuff without evidence. And, if you have a back problem, and because there's that other aspect of mind body stuff where if I have something wrong, where like a disc is missing or whatever may be going on in my back, I have the x-ray, I have the receipts to show like I am truly injured. And when you're somebody like me who had migraines, or somebody like you who has long COVID, but nobody really knows about it, we don't necessarily have the receipts. And so there is this kind of lawyer aspect to us where we have to go and prove our case to whatever medical professional so that hopefully you can figure out something different so that I can stop feeling like this. And for, I think, trainers, there is that ability because we do have more time. We're with our clients for, depending on you, it's, 45 minutes to an hour that you're working with somebody at a time. So there is that time to build relationships. And I think this is probably the perfect space for this work because that trust gets built as you're working through stuff. And it's kind of like when you're walking with a client and you're both facing forward, and the client is a lot more honest because they don't have to look into your eyes and they get a chance to reflect and do those things.
Yeah.
That's almost like what working out is too, is that as somebody's working through something, they don't necessarily have to look you in the eyes. So they do have that time to
Yeah.
be honest about what's going on for them. And then also know that it's not a space of judgment.
Yeah, and even better, what we have a Rebound app, and part of the reason I structure it this way is so clients actually can reach out to me by message or voice note. I don't do any like face to face stuff for coaching. We do some sort of community stuff occasionally, and that's purposely because I don't want people to feel obligated that they're having symptoms. They have to show up
Mhm.
and respond to me. They can respond. They can ask me questions they want, or respond to me when they want. I'm not going to be chasing them. So actually, they probably divulge even more sometimes on voice notes and things because they know I'm just there listening and I'm not without judgment. But it works quite well in that sense.
That's great. So there's a lot of skepticism around this type of, and we're doing better, right? We have the Boulder Back
Mm.
Clinic. There's a lot of scientific breakthroughs that are coming through that people are actually believing it, but they still see it as an alternative healing method. So
Yeah.
asking you, what do you think people, what do you wish that they understood about these tools and
Mm.
how, I guess, essential treating chronic pain is? And I guess the space and grace that we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you just put it really eloquently, I think, at the end there. But I think that is the crux of it. It, I think, first of all, like acknowledging um, that I totally understand why there can be a lot of skepticism around this work, why people may be maybe feel have their sort of the sort of the blinds up down to it a little bit because of the stigma, especially around visible illnesses, that the stigma people have to live with already. And then when you say there's something like brain retraining, and it's like, okay, brain, that means head in my head. So are you saying it's in my head? And that could be really confronting to even just get past that first bit, I think, for someone who is struggling hugely and knows how physically ill they are. And so I just want to acknowledge that off the bat. I'd say that I think what it did for me, and I went down all the medical routes, like that was my first port of call, right? I explored what was available, which wasn't much. But I tried experimental drugs. I worked with a functional doctor. I did all that, and nothing, moved the needle at all. And it was someone just suggested this to me, and I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose. Let me just explore it. Let me find out a bit about it. I kind of heard about it, but I didn't know much about it. As soon as I started kind of just understanding the in layman's terms, the neuroscience behind it and how, in a very simple terms, and I know it might sound too simplistic for people, and I will not do it as a good job on this. So that's why I'm going to use a very obvious example. But because I'm not I'm not a NLP coach or a brain retraining practitioner. I just take some of the principles that I learn and I integrate it with the movement. Your thoughts and your emotions have a physiological response. Just think about when you're nervous ahead of a presentation. Right? You get that horrible feeling in your pit of your stomach, and that is your brain controlling that, right? So these illnesses are not psychological, but what mind body approaches do, whether that's whatever falls under that umbrella, there's a few different things, obviously, but somatic tracking, meditations, breathwork, yoga nidra, reframing thoughts, that kind of thing. What that does is essentially restabilizing your nervous system. It's settling it down. It's giving it a chance then for your body to heal, to do what it's designed to do. And honestly, when you feel the switch from it's so empowering when you do some of this work. And the first time you actually feel a physical change in your symptoms because of something you've just done, that's been like a really simple exercise that you've, been guided through or whatever it might be. It's so empowering. And once you get that first glimpse, you're like, oh, wow, I've got hope back.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I would just encourage people to be curious and be open-minded and just explore. You don't say you have to go do it. There's so many different like coaches out there now doing this stuff because it has got obviously bigger and bigger, especially with, I think, the long COVID situation. It's really shining a light on this stuff. But yeah, I would just say explore it. There's lots of free resources out there as well. Like you don't have to sign up to an expensive program. You could just, lots of coaches have a free resource. You could just dip your toe in and just learn about the principles and it'll help you figure out if you think that if it's worth giving it a go. But I would say like if you've tried everything else, then try to be open minded and just give it a chance. And I would also say like it's not necessarily saying, it's not saying like medical or traditional medicine and mind body approach have to be mutually exclusive. Like, I know there'll be people in both camps that maybe feel that they should be, but actually why do they have to be? Like, I think if
Yes.
if you've got medical things that you feel like are helping you, then we're not saying don't stop those, but actually integrating some of this stuff could actually then have even more benefit, right? It could make that stuff work even better and vice versa. So that's the other perspective I would have on it.
Yeah, 100%. And that's because you can bring these things. And I know for me, when I started the work, because I started with Curable as well, and then I found Nicole Sachs and I wanted to journal. And as I was reading about the journaling, I went, because I knew it was going to be some
Yeah.
deep diving into some old stuff.
Mm.
But I had a therapist. So I had a full discussion with my therapist and I said, this is the work that I'm going to start and I need your support. And she was 100% on board because I think mental health professionals are probably the easiest inroad. I
Mm.
think a lot of times my primary care provider still is like, oh, that's nice. He's not on board. I mean, he's not discouraging, but he's definitely like, oh, yay. So, but my therapist is, let's go, let's do this work. And she was because there's moments where you get stuck and then because you've been in this situation, or at least I was in the situation for such a long time, my default thinking was not good. So she was able to kind of push me out of default thinking quickly. So I only stewed in it for a little bit as opposed to spending months in it and thinking, oh, this is whatever. The other aspect that
Yeah.
you brought up that I absolutely love is that this shit is free. What you're doing is free. The Curable app, you can go and get a trial for whatever period of time and do it. I know all of you out there have probably spent thousands of dollars on supplements and doctor's visits and
Mhm.
physios and all those things because you're just wanting a speck of relief. And you have the ability to have access to this and just make a decision, do it for a couple of days and just notice if you see a change. And if that needle moves, then you know that you're
Yeah.
heading in the right direction. So that's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
So you created Rebound. Now you keep talking about it, but I want to know, so I'm a client. I want to get in this. So what am I doing? Because I'm an athlete. And as you said, I'm like ashamed. Yes, I made the same mistakes where I'm like, I'm okay. And then I went back like 100%. And then the
Yeah.
universe went, ha ha, and slapped me. And then I was down and then I felt guilty about being down. And then, I was like, I could do it again. And, so like, how does Rebound help somebody who like me integrate my recovery in a manner that's I'm not hurting myself is probably the easiest way for me to put it.
Yeah, it's a great question. So within Rebound itself, I have two core programs, and they are very different. One is specifically for people that are symptomatic, regularly symptomatic, very varying degrees, but would not say that they were like on the, they're clear, right? And they're still probably managing post-exertional malaise, symptom flare-ups from exertion, whether it's cognitive, physical, etc. And that's the baseline program. And then I have something else called the 90-day rebound method. This was, I can't remember if I mentioned at the start, but this was the program when I first got that bit of hope that I was gonna maybe I will be able to train again. I will get better. This was like, I'm gonna design myself my ideal reconditioning program, which is appropriate for someone who's deconditioned coming out of like a chronic illness. But this one is progressive, and you've already built your exercise tolerance back, you build confidence back in your body. There's a resilience there. So depending on when people come in, I kind of funnel them to either one of these. Most people are in baseline, and even if I think they might be ready, or they think they might be ready for a rebound, I build in safety nets, because you know what it's like. To your point, you think, yeah, I can do this. I rein people in all the time, which can be a bit like sometimes a bit crushing, because I think that they're so desperate to get back to doing what they love, and they don't want to train in ways they love. And I have to say, like, you if you want to do that, you've got to start here. Otherwise, you're just going to keep going crash. You're just going to keep going backwards. It's so baseline. Very very quickly, this is the one that I kind of use that poor experience of something like great exercise therapy, which I realized was not flexible enough. The exercises within it were not energy efficient, or certainly how it was prescribed to me. So I kind of took all that and I designed what I call the baseline formula, which is kind of at the heart of it. And in there, it's about first of all, the movement modality, just kind of allude to it. We only do isolation exercises for strength, mostly floor based. They kind of progress through, they progress into like seated or chair, or and eventually standing. But so that's kind of how in one aspect, how we keep it safe. And if anyone doesn't know what an isolation exercise is, it's like you're targeting a single sort of muscle group, and there's sort of slower kind of controlled movement that don't require as much energy to perform, like a compound movement, like a squat, right? That uses multiple. So that's the one thing. There's safety in that in itself, right? And it's more mindful. If you think back to kind of the connection to like mind body stuff, it's more mindful as you're doing it, and you can focus on sort of your breath and your messages of safety at the same time. And then it's about getting what I call dosage. It's the next element of the formula, but the volume right, for your level and where your capacity is at. And then once you get that nailed, that's your baseline. And that could be, depending on where you are on your journey, that could be really minimal. And often, well, it will be for everyone that comes through less than they think. But your baseline is what you can do repeatedly, consistently, couple, two, 3 times a week. And rather than traditional programs or graded exercise therapy, there is no linear progression at all. It's all led by the person, so, and where they're at. So you could be at your baseline for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It doesn't matter. What's most important is that you're able to move whatever that amount is consistently. And that helps you start get your sense of self back. So at this point, the volume you're doing, the work, you're not building muscle. Like you might be doing I don't know, you could be doing something that's like a couple mobility movements, and then a few reps of like a little bridge and some, I don't know, some scapular retractions, right? That's it. But even doing that, you weren't able to do that consistently before. So that's how you start to get that sense of self back of who you were. And then the third part of the formula is what I call micro progressions. So when you are, and I have guidance around how we do that, and we're knowing when you're ready for it. But when you feel like you're ready to move up a baseline, we had a micro progression, which could be a couple more reps. Depending where it might be a set. But as people heal, they build more exercise tolerance, they have more capacity, those micro progressions get bigger naturally. That's just kind of what happens. But that's, in essence, that's the approach of baseline. Within baseline, we have a community. We have an amazing community, actually, from all over the world. It's really positive. I purposely don't have my community on Facebook, which
Nice.
From a business perspective is probably not a good thing, but I don't care. Like, I just don't want to have a Facebook group at the moment, like just to sort of avoid, so I can control it and kind of avoid those medical rabbit holes, sort of negativity. Like so we keep it really positive. We celebrate our wins. And then what people tend to do, like what a lot of people tend to do is like kind of go through, they use baseline throughout their recovery. And then when they're confident, completely confident in what they're tolerating, they're ready for more, they then move on to the 90-day rebound method. typically that's kind of what happens. I do have some people coming in straight to the latter, but I don't let people just sign up and pay. They have to apply because I'm quite strict on sort of meeting certain criteria for that. And when you're coming out of a chronic illness, I do have some people that are sort of outside of space, like have just found me and I think, well, actually, I'm just really deconditioned. I had a baby a few years ago. I've never got back into it. Would this be appropriate for me? And I'm like, yeah, of course it would. But if you're coming out of a chronic illness, a fatigue illness, then I'm quite strict on the criteria that you have to meet. So I hope that gives you a bit of a sense.
Come on,
Sorry if
where
I went
were
on a little
you?
bit.
Where were you before you were suffering from long COVID when I was coming out of it? Because I really, it was difficult for me to dial in the workout stuff.
Mm,
And as you know, as a athlete that competes, there almost, even when you get back to the movement piece, there is that grievance, right? You have to grieve
mm,
that lost you, that you're not going, but it's also not a bad thing. Like when you were talking about
yeah.
the 2 or 3 workouts a day, that's probably not okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it's like, maybe that's not grieving. Maybe that's just like progressing and letting go and
Yeah.
just like,
Possibly.
I don't need to do all those things,
Yeah.
you know?
But I think
So,
just to your point, like I think it's even harder. I don't want to stereotype here for a lot of men to train it to work out in a different way as well. Like I just had a guy come in actually, and I I had to sort of I didn't have to rein him too far. I could see he was just I think that was it. He came on a go off a 7-day trial, and he came in and he's like he did his trial, and he's like I'm not sure, I feel this might be a bit too low level for me. And I was like, but he
always.
he also explained to me that he keeps crashing. So I was like, we went back and forth, and I was like, and then it was like just trust in and now he's like all in trusting in the process. But I love it
Right.
when guys give it a chance because and naturally like women over index in my programs because women over index in autoimmune, in chronic fatigue syndrome, in long COVID generally, unfortunately. But yeah, so when the guys come in and they give this a go, I'm like, thank you for trusting me. As a woman, I know like
Right.
you want to be lifting metal, but yeah.
Well, and men just in general have it harder in the expectation space.
Mm,
Right,
totally.
when you look at the things that they like, when I get my fitness feed through TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and when I see all the guys, I don't see a normal sized human man doing some exercises. Never,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody
True.
I see is jacked, stacked, and
Yeah.
that is difficult for men to have to look at and compare.
Yeah.
And for
You're
anyone
totally
who
right.
thinks that men don't have body image issues,
Dysmorphia. Yeah,
yeah, you're
absolutely.
not paying attention. They have a huge amount
I
of
think you're
body
right.
issues.
I think possibly worse than women. Like even in we're probably going off piece, but like you're right. Even in like if there's a lot of more like female influencers out there who are of all shapes and sizes, and and we don't see that in for men at all. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
I
and
think you're
even as a school teacher watching, they're not nice to one another either, and they're more bold about it. Like, girls are a little bit more like, I call it backbiting, where they're kinda talking
mm,
behind your back and saying mean things, but men are outwardly bullying each other. "Oh, look how
right.
skinny you are. Oh, look how short you are," or whatever, and I think it's really difficult, because I think they come into this space, especially feeling vulnerable, but then having that societal pull where I need to be strong and I need to not be suffering from these types of things because I have
Yeah.
these roles, right? Where I'm the
Yeah.
provider and I need to be big and strong and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, dude, we just need you to be human. And I think the more people that could foster that and give them a break and let them be
Yeah.
themselves and express themselves, then, hey, if we all can express ourselves in the way that we need to, we probably wouldn't have chronic pain, to be
True.
honest, right? And
Yeah.
that's a huge part of it, is that there is having that ability to say what's on your mind, feel the feelings, process it, and move on is huge.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't afford that to each other.
We don't. We don't. Yeah.
Anyway, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. How do we get in touch with you?
I'll drop you my links. But, yeah, the best way is so on my website, which is rebound athletic.com. That's the best place to start. On there is a free assessment. So I talked about kind of like the 2 programs and kind of figuring out where you're at. So there's a free assessment on there you can take if you like. Takes 2 minutes. It'll go through a bunch of questions, and it'll pinpoint you where you need to go at that there. But yeah, you can reach me as a contact form there if you want to reach out. Also, yeah, I'm on Instagram as well. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
All
And
right. Well, thank you so
I
much.
do, like, I'm busy. I have Rebound. I also have a corporate job. I didn't mention that, and I'm a mum. But if people reach out to me, I will get back to them, whether it's on email or Instagram. Might not be immediately. But I know I've always wanted to be that person for someone that I wish I had when I was going through this. Yeah, don't hesitate. I'll respond.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No worries. All right. Cheers for having me on, Dana.